museum friends. I'm Nat, and welcome to another Museum from Home talk here in my home, not at the Roberson Museum and Science Center, but we're almost there, hopefully July. So this week, to celebrate the incoming vacation season and make sure you socially distance, we're going to talk about the history and origins of taking time off to rest and relax in America. So leisure time isn't an entirely new idea. It's just for most of Western history, it has been more of an opportunity relegated to those with the economic means to do so. Alonzo and Margaret Roberson, for example, enjoyed a lot of time in Thousand Islands Park, where they had a second home, where they would yacht on the Margaret II, and enjoy the company of a similar status. Leisure was a signifier that you were above most, whereas hard work was for people of less means. But in the late 1800s, things were advancing. Industrialization changed a lot of the customs in America and elevated the wealth of some people, enough so that they could start spending money on things other than bare necessities. They could treat themselves to some of the finer things in life. More affordable and faster options of transportation, like trains and soon after, automobiles, further enabled people to visit places that used to take days or months to get to, which was time only the most wealthy could afford. Travel time to enriching natural spaces like the Catskills was only a few hours' journey from New York City and Binghamton, so weekend trips became possible. And the biggest domino to push for vacations for the middle class were the owners of these large industries. Businessmen started supporting this idea of time off for their employees. Industrialists at the time remarked how workers who had time off came back with renewed enthusiasm. Time off was good for business, and taking time off so one could get back to work became the internalized American mentality, which is counter to the more European idea of working so that one can take time off. The only thing left to decide was how much time was enough. It became quite a discussion in the early 1900s as to how much paid time off businesses should lend. President Taft famously said everyone should get 3 months. Many other businessmen were not quite as liberal as Taft, suggesting 2 weeks or a month. Many offered it should be more of a sliding scale based on how much the mind had to labor. This, of course, favored more time to office workers and less so for ones toiling on the factory floor. The amount of time off for employees is a debate which, of course, still rages in human resources departments to this very day. But now with money to spend, means to get somewhere quickly, and not waste this precious time off, the only question left was what to do when one wasn't working. Many people took the opportunity to go places that promoted health and renewed vitality, and there were plenty of books, ads, and travel guides to offer where people should go to find this better sense of self. Harrison Rhodes' book, In Vacation America, discussed the advantages of all kinds of vacations for all kinds of attitudes. One chapter was entirely dedicated to springs and fresh mountain air, and remarked on how one could find renewed sense of self in these places. Quote, "Even the old ladies are so young," he once wrote. Vacation was considered the cure for the ails of work. However, not all vacation spots were created equal. For groups that were considered white, wherever the train stopped and the roads led, there was a place for them to vacation. However, minority groups that were considered non-white, which changed throughout the history of America, often had to set up their own resort communities, some which still exist as popular vacation spots to this day. For African Americans in particular, entire resort communities were built not just to escape work, but to escape racial discrimination. especially after the 1896 Supreme Court case Plessy versus Ferguson, which legally authorized racial segregation on a national level. These spaces became more important than ever. This discrimination wasn't limited to the South either. After this ruling, resort communities like Saratoga Springs, New York, began offering separate bathhouses for blacks and whites. Other places would only serve black people at certain times or on certain days, which is why designated resort communities for African Americans became quite popular. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about one such resort called Idlewild in Michigan that was a space specifically for black Americans to retreat for some R&R. Du Bois said, "Not for one moment in fine joy of life, absolute freedom from the desperate cruelty of the color line, and for the wooing of the great silence, which is peace and deep contentment. Not for one little minute can they rival or catch the bounding pulse of Idlewild." Idlewild earned the nickname the Black Eden, and before the Green Book helped black motorists and travelers find inviting spaces, it was designated resorts like Idlewild, Oak Bluff, and Sag Harbor that offered relief and rejuvenation for the humanizing qualities. The Green Book further opened up the possibilities of travel in America for blacks when it started its yearly publication, which ran from 1937 until 1967. The highway and seeing America beyond a resort became part of the idealized vacation. The Green Book offered a crowdsourced list of safe spaces for African American motorists to rest, relax, and see the United States. I will say, flipping through the years, Binghamton, New York did not seem to offer any spaces or services to recommend in any edition of the Green Book, which is quite upsetting. The only place listed in the southern tier is Elmira, New York, Green Pastures tourist home at 670 Dickinson Street. Thankfully, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited segregation, and the Green Book helped affirm to black motorists their rights out on the road while providing them more welcoming lodging, bars, and vacation spots to enjoy. The history of American vacations at their core are very much a way for us to get away and realize ourselves outside of everyday life and detach ourselves for a time from work. I'm curious to know what kind of vacations you like to take, and what purposes does a vacation serve in your life? Let me know in the comments down below. Me, I love taking road trips to visit the little-known or abandoned spaces. It's, for me, all about experiencing a space and getting to know why it was left behind. I love stories. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope to see you next week for another Tuesday Talk. Bye.